Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Smash or Pass with JayBee,
Hey.
me Milly, and of course Smash.
Hello.
So today's movie that we are going to be taking a look at and having a little kind of conversation and analysing just some of the key points of is Scooby Doo Abracadabra-Doo. So this one again is one that JayBee and I were completely new to. Like, this was our first ever watch through. Now, as always, we turn to Smash as the professional. I'm guessing you might have seen this more than the one time we have.
I would hope so, at least. Yes, I've seen it a handful of times.
Okay, good. And for those of you that haven't seen this one for a while, the gang basically get asked to go and take a look at Velma's sister's school because there is some kind of Griffin like lurking around and just like reports are happening, and so they have to go and check on the safety for Velma's sister. And so that's an entire like new character that we meet that kind of entwines themselves within the group. We see an entirely new dynamic there. As the title suggests, there is some kind of magical, and I want to say maybe a bit mystical as well with the Griffin and things, elements to this movie. And ultimately it's, you know, a case of trying to locate this staff that's going to kind of resolve all these issues. Shaggy gets an entirely new role as well, kind of the more brave knight. So it really is a bit of a roller coaster movie, I want to say, more than the others have been.
Oh yeah, and I agree. And I guess extra things to know in terms of context, in terms of direct-to, video movies. This is the first time that we have Matthew Lillard taking over as Shaggy from Casey Kasem, and it's also kind of the first revamped animation style, so a bit more like what we'd see going forward versus the What's New era. So I don't know. I like it a lot. I'm just gonna say that for at least the start, and I'm just intrigued because I almost felt like just seeing like the initial glimpse of it. That I think I had the wrong childhood, like not that I dislike the What's New movies, but it's like, you know what, could my parents not have been so enthusiastic to have kids? Like, just wait a few years. Can I grow up with this
Or a
movie
few years
instead?
earlier when it was like the...
Oh, you know what? I could do that.
Because it's the old like outfits and things that have returned, right?
Yeah, I'm totally. This is all kind of, I don't want to say retro, but it feels that way.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? I think that. But I feel like you're already further ahead than I am. I want to talk about the title.
Oh, yeah.
So, Smash, like, from like watching your channel and things, we see that normally a title's released, then maybe an artwork, then a trailer. Is that correct?
Yeah, usually the title kind of leaks first, and then usually the trailer.
So, do you remember first hearing this title and what you kind of thought when you did?
Yeah, so originally I heard... Okay, so actually they don't do this anymore, and it kind of bothers me, but it may just be because they're not done in time now. But it used to be where, like, when you would get the new Scooby Doo movie, so let's just say Samurai Sword, when that one originally released, it would come with a trailer or a preview of what the next one's going to be so you can look forward to it. They don't do that anymore, so you never know what's coming until you see it on the internet now. But, like, so this movie's trailer was attached to a DVD, so that's how I heard it first, and I don't know, have you guys seen the trailer for this movie?
I don't think I have. Did you, Millie?
No, I don't think so either.
Okay, so this movie's trailer was really lazy, I'll say, because they basically just pulled in shots from Loch Ness Monster and just was like, ooh, creature, castle. So it didn't give you anything. And so going into it, you didn't even know that the animation was going to change either because they were using the What's New. So completely blinded when I went into this movie.
Yeah,
That is
that's
really
ridiculous.
strange.
That's like if they released a trailer for like Endgame and it was just scenes of Iron Man from the first one. Like, that's mad.
Yeah.
See, I will admit, like, granted, when JB first was like, let's watch this, I'd just finished work, so I was a little bit tired. But when he was like, okay, it's Abracadabra-Doo, in my head I was like, we just watched the magic one, didn't we?
Yeah, Goblin King.
The magic one did already happen.
Oh yeah, because we even had like bonus credits of like, or like a bonus feature where they were teaching us magic tricks.
Yeah, so in my head I was like, sure he's got this wrong. And then it took me a few seconds to be like, no, that the title was Goblin King. This is something new. So I'll say that my kind of initial expectations were like, okay, Goblin King is going to be real magic kind of thing.
Yeah, so I was very much on the same page, although I will admit I had no clue what the villain was going into this, because I'm not sure how familiar people are with the cover. It's like the visual of the podcast right now, but the one thing that Scooby and Shaggy seem to be scared of is obviously the Griffin in hindsight. But I honestly just thought that it was an eagle that had maybe flown out of,
that.
you know, one of the hats, that you'd pull the rabbit out of the hat. Maybe they pulled a bird out and that had spooked them a bit. That I had no clue what the villain was. So from my point of view, it could have been supernatural. It could have not been. I was neither here nor there with it.
And then at the very start, to hear it was a magic school, I was like, oh my goodness, they're going to Hogwarts.
Hogwarts.
True.
So I think it's fair to say that my expectations are a little bit all over the place at the very start.
But this is a weirdly paced movie, I want to say, because we go into a cold open, and then we have long credits, and then it continues with the story, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, you're right there. And I think mentioning the credits, that's definitely a talking point, because they in themselves are an entirely different art style.
What did you think of the cold open?
Oh, sorry.
I guess what is SMASH thing? Yeah, SMASH. Oh my gosh, I accidentally waxed my nose. But yeah, SMASH. What did you think about this terrifying open?
So yeah, I mean, I remember initially watching it. When I got this movie, my parents had just left for something, I don't even know, and so my oldest sister was watching me. And she had her boyfriend over at the time, and I was like, we have to go get this movie. Like, I don't even care. I'm like, Mom and Dad are leaving, so you gotta take me to get this movie, which she did. And then I didn't get to watch it until later that night, because, her being, like, in charge now, she's like, oh, gotta make sure you do your homework and everything, and you had dinner and stuff. So I'm not, getting in trouble when Mom and Dad get home. And so I didn't get to watch it till late at night. And so it was, me being younger, it kind of added to more of the creepiness atmosphere. And so I will say this opening always has kind of creeped me out a little bit. And I really like how, I guess at least just with the cold open, it kind of is like because for the last few movies, we've kind of seen like, more so with the titles like a Warner Brothers production, and then the title's immediately there. Whereas this was like, a Warner Brothers production, and then kind of swooped into the movie, and then it wasn't until, say, 5 minutes later we get the title, so it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of, slowly getting us into it. It's not just like yelling at us, Scooby Doo, it's like, we're gonna ease us into here. And I thought the opening itself, though, was kind of funny, like, because I did rewatch this one before hand, and just kind of the guy, the guy and girl, and the guy's just like, yeah, we're searching for this bird, and she's just like, no, we're on a date, come on.
It is a very funny opening. Now, am I right in saying that we first see the cold opening, we see it as a shadow, right?
Well, it's weird because it was very reminiscent to me, almost of Zombie Island, like from the owl to everything. But I think our first glimpse of it, I think we see it through the point of view of the girl, and they're looking for this creature, and she's like, does it have big eyes? Oh yeah. Does it have feathers? Exactly like that. So we're kind of getting a bit of like her point of view, but she's more describing it to the guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I really like this a lot, and it's like, the disconnect between these two was hilarious. Although I was kind of surprised that, like, very early on, we almost get, like, a booty shot from the woman. It's, like, right on screen. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why that was factored into it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, we're kind of getting into this weird era where Scooby really tries to push the boundary of how sexualized they can go with being a kid's cartoon. And the next movie, Camp Scare, definitely has some shots.
Definitely. Many shots will be. Okay,
See,
yeah.
admit, I don't know why, but okay, so for some reason, JayBee and I decided that it was a good idea to watch Buffy. And that opening scene, I got really weird Buffy vibes, okay? Because, like, you know, because they were, like, lurking around in the middle of the night and there was some kind of, like, monster thing. And then her torch, she was holding it backwards. So it almost looked like the stake thing that Buffy carries with her. So I don't know why, but, like, my mind just went there for a second before it came back into...
I do get what you're saying.
Scooby Doo.
Although, right from the start, I was instantly thinking Mystery Incorporated. And I associated these two with that unlucky couple in that series, that, like, at least in 5 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, no. These people. But I want to ask Smash a question, actually. And maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit too much, but I kind of wanted to know sooner rather than later. Was this movie playing alongside Mystery Incorporated? Because I noticed that the deduction scene that they use in Mystery Incorporated was used quite a lot in this movie. And not even just for the deduction. I think the first time we hear it is just like a riff of a few bars from it in the opening scene here.
Yeah, so this movie was the start of a new decade for Scooby, because this came out in February of 2010. And so we had just passed the 40th anniversary for Scooby Doo in September the year prior, and we had the Mystery Begins live action movie the day of the anniversary. And so going into 2010, we were in this weird, where is Scooby going? Because Shaggy and Scooby Doo kind of just ended, canceled, whatever happened to that. We haven't had a series now for a few years with the gang, and and Casey Kasem had just retired because of his health concerns. And so a lot was hanging in the air right now, but obviously they had a lot of stuff planned. We just didn't hear about it. So this came out February 2010, and Mystery Incorporated, it technically started airing in July of the same year, but they did a little weird, like, preview in April. But anyway, so Mystery Incorporated and this movie came out in the same year.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering as well about, you know, things being up in the air, especially with Shaggy and Scooby Doo get a clue ending. And it's like, maybe that's why in hindsight they've got, like, booty shots and stuff like that. They're trying to be a bit more edgy, because it's like, when the franchise had kind of fizzled out before, their response to that was more like Zombie Island. It was more like, this time they're real, and I think maybe this is the year that they just didn't want to go into the supernatural, so it was more like, well, how do we do things? Let's make a grittier art style and perhaps make things a bit more, I don't want to say mature, because I think at its heart it doesn't go into that deeper themes, but you know, like in Disney movies there's always this thing, like, if you notice this frame it looks kind of this way, like, a bit, not like subliminal messages, but certainly more when you're older and you look back at it you notice things. So a very interesting intro, I want to say.
Indeed. And then I think the title.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at now.
And this in themselves are an entire art style that could have been developed into a series.
Did you hate it? Because I think you hated it, but I kind of liked it for what it was. Like, it's like chibi.
Yeah, I didn't really like it because I don't know. They just all looked younger on it, and I was a bit like, no. See, I don't know what it is, but like something like A Pup Named Scooby Doo has never really stood out to me as something that I really want to watch. Like, I don't know, for me it's about the gang. Like, you need to be a certain age to be going out where there's like this kind of level of threat and mystery. So I don't know, anything where they even look a bit younger, I'm a bit like, oh no.
I don't know.
I don't know how I feel about that.
It gets a bit deep sometimes. Like a episode dedicated to like why you shouldn't do drugs. I guess that's not really. I mean, I was taught that by Harold the giraffe, so that's not like something that can't be conveyed in a playful way. But I just didn't expect it to go there. I do kind of agree. I feel like if the whole movie had stayed in this style, it maybe wouldn't have resonated with me as much, especially just coming from the What's New era. That wasn't necessarily, you know, the opposite way, but it was certainly more, okay, they're like in proportionate like people as opposed to like little chibi animation people. But for what it was in terms of the intro, I really like it.
And I mean, the story of the intro, just little things that were done in the intro, like the infamous Scooby Doo like running between doors thing, they did that briefly. And also I liked how when it reverted after the fact to the art style that we'd see for the rest of the movie, the titles and what had happened actually linked to the story.
I'm fine.
Because for all I thought the titles were a bit long, I did think they did go on a little bit.
One other thing that I was gonna ask is, and again, I just need to keep on asking smASH questions. I think this is why I struggled like so much with this movie, because it's the first time I'm watching it and I was like, oh, next time it's something new, I think I'm just gonna pester smASH to be on Discord call at the same time because I need to know these. But to what extent was Matthew Lillard, you know, taking over Shaggy? Well, to what extent was that hype? Like, was it positively received, negatively received? Because I was almost wondering if the fact that we're seeing all the actors and actresses' name flash up could have been like, if it wasn't clear, we've managed to do this type thing.
Okay, first I want to say that we should, if you guys are down at one point, try to watch one of these like together on a Discord call. Anyway,
that would be good.
I'd love that.
Anyway, so yeah, Matthew Lillard taking over. When I originally watched this, I didn't realize, you know, I didn't know actors' names at the time as much and stuff, and so obviously I noticed Shaggy's voice was different, but it didn't click to me who it was for a while. But this whole transition was kind of interesting because Casey Kasem retired in 2009, and you know, we're presuming that Samurai Sword was recorded in 2008. So, you know, technically could have stopped sometime in 2008. And when they came up to Matthew Lillard, because they didn't go to anyone else. They went to Matthew straight up and said, do you want to have this role? Because you played him before, you can do the voice and whatever. And Matthew, in so many interviews, has said, you know, he never said immediately, like, yes, I want to do this. He said, you know, excuse me, how much time do I have? Let me consider this, because, you know, Casey is an icon. He's a legend, and I can't jump into it just for a job. I need to carry on a legacy. And so he still, to this day, is kind of weary on his Shaggy voice. Sometimes doesn't feel like he's living up to Casey's, you know, role. And a lot of times, like at conventions that he'll go to and whatever, he doesn't feel comfortable doing the Shaggy voice in front of adults, and rather he's, you know, he's like, I'll do it if a kid asks, but if an adult, you know, wants to hear it, he's like, no, I don't. I don't do that. You know, it's all for the kids. It's to carry on his legacy. You know, it's not just something that I go around saying my Shaggy voice all around, whatever. So he really, really loves this role, and he has stated too that he says, although he's not super proud of the live action movies, he can't imagine not doing those movies because it has given him this career and this job and a living, you know, that he might have never gotten if he had never tried out for Shaggy. And he is so grateful for that, and very grateful that the studio would trust him to carry on from Casey's, you know, role and whatever. So anyway, yeah, this whole transition was a big deal, but I think unfortunately kids didn't realize. But now it's interesting, okay? Because a while ago, not too long ago, I want to say I was doing a live stream or something. Anyway, someone was like, someone told me they like grew up with Camp Scare, and they grew up with Mr. Incorporated, and I was like, that just like hit me. I was like, I am finding gray hairs. Like, to me, Mr. Incorporated is still new. Like, Camp Scare Abracadabra-Doo is still new generation Scooby. You're telling me you grew up with this? Excuse me? And so we're getting into this age of where Matthew Lillard is now this generation's Shaggy, you know? And so it's so cool that people are relating Matthew Lillard to Shaggy now, and he is carrying on that legacy. And you know, we'll get into the whole Scoob debacle eventually, but you know, so many people were mostly offended for Matthew Lillard because they're like, he carried on Casey's legacy. Why are you not giving it to him when he has proved that he can continue this, you know, this legend of a man? And anyway, there's my whole 2 cents on your question.
No, you're exactly right with what you're saying, and I think the Scoob thing is a conversation that'll be to be had at some point, because like as you were like saying, you know, he didn't accept it straight away. He was wanting to be really respectful and make sure that he wasn't just, you know, accepting because it was offered to him. It was something that he could do justice to. Literally in my head I was sat here going, okay, and then Scoob happened and it's just not good, is it? And then you mentioned Scoob as well, and I was like, yeah, this is a point of conversation, because for me personally, the casting, there was something just not quite right there.
Yeah, I mean,
like we went to go and see it in the cinema recently, and I don't know, I feel like quite often when we watch any Scooby Doo movie, the first 2 or 3 minutes for me is just, okay, this is the voices, this is what it is. Like when we did the reaction with the reaction video with you for Sword and the Scoob, I remember hearing Velma's voice and just been like, okay, this is what it is, that's fine. I'll relax into this, but like just
that's a whole nother conversation Scoob, once we get there.
But listening to Scoob, where every single voice was different, it wasn't like, okay, I can just latch onto this one for a couple of minutes, or okay, this is like some normality. This is Scooby to me. Everything was just like, okay, this is gonna take more than the normal few seconds that I used to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so jarring as well. Like, I don't know, like obviously we'll get to that when we get to that, but I feel that this is quite a good movie to talk about just the kind of handing over of roles and stuff, because it's just so cool how it's done here, and it is distinctly different. That's what I'll say. Like, it's not like, you know, Matthew Lillard's come into this role and has gone, let's do a Casey Kasem impersonation, or let's try and be the same character. It is distinctly different. I think if you listen to them both,
yeah,
and you're given like a quiz, like who said this, you're gonna know instantly. It's not that much of a blend, but to the point where it works. Like, it's not just a cheap version of something, it's its own thing, and I think it works that way.
I mean, one thing that struck me with this movie is the first time Matthew Lillard speaks, it's almost like for that very first line, the volume was slightly higher than the rest of the movie. It was just like, I don't know, it just seemed quite like a pivotal thing that they had almost differentiated in that moment. I don't know.
I guess because so I don't know how things work anymore. I assume that they don't all record together, right?
See, as soon as we say we don't know what happens anymore or something like that, in my head I was like, okay, this is him trying to ask stuff.
No, because I know they recorded the cyber chase together. They even had the Phantom Virus next to Frank Welker, and they were all like having the thing, but I don't know if it was maybe that they recorded together still, and so maybe it was just kind of like Matthew's first time with the regular cast that had already worked together on like the last 12 films or so.
So, okay. Here's my thing. Like going back to like this movie and Mr. Incorporated, like he does great as Shaggy. He does, but like watching more of the present day stuff, I definitely see a transition. Like now, I feel like his Shaggy voice is effortless, whereas in this movie, I feel like he was still trying to kind of push it out a little bit and kind of switch into that mode a little bit. And so for me, these few movies and like Mystery Incorporated is a little harder for me to dive into Shaggy because I just feel like Matthew's like, oh, you know, it's almost been 10 years since I've done a Shaggy voice. I gotta kind of get into there. And so, whereas again, like now I listen and Guess Who, and I swear he could just talk as Shaggy for the rest of his life. And but as far as I know, the core four voice actors still record together. But if there's any extras, they don't always record with them. They may record with some, you know, in different sessions and whatever. But as far as I know, most of the time the core four gang actors are together, but never necessarily meet and interact with the guest voices.
Okay, that is interesting. That is interesting for sure. So maybe that's part of it. And I get what you're saying, like, it must be so difficult to switch into a Shaggy voice. Like, I know that I've definitely tried in childhood, I've tried now, and I can't do it. But...
It's really impressive. Like, again, I know I've mentioned this podcast a lot, but watching the Nikki Blake podcast when they had, like, when the guest was just switching between being like Fred to being Scrappy to being Scooby to then how they impersonated Velma for a McDonald's advert or something, it was just like, oh my goodness.
But I've got to say,
I'm literally like, when you've got the visual of Scooby Doo there, it's like, okay, I can see these as different people. But when he was literally there on the camera, like just flipping between the two, but it was the like 4 or 5, but it was exactly the same face the entire time. I don't know how I felt about that.
I mean, I don't want Matthew Lillard to go anywhere like anytime soon. I'm pretty sure the guy's immortal. I mean, that's how so. But like, at some point down the line, I would love to see what Nick Pilates could do with Shaggy's voice acting role. Like, because I actually love the guy's performance in those 2 like Cartoon Network movies, and it's like if Matthew Lillard just gave up voice acting tomorrow for whatever reason, I think that they wouldn't go far wrong hiring Nick to do that.
For some reason, I get the vibe that he'd be like Matthew Lillard's done. Like, he seems like a younger version of pre-existing. Does that sound really stupid?
I mean, it's just ridiculous. The fact that everyone's like, no one can play live action Shaggy except for Matthew Lillard, and it's like, okay, I get what you're saying, and it's definitely an iconic role, but like, look at this, like, you can't get much closer than that as well. Like,
when I say the same thing, I just think he seems like a younger, slightly less confident Shaggy. Maybe that's what the role kind of required at the time. But that's why I kind of see them as more like something like a more timid.
Oh, how cool would that have been? I don't think this was ever the plan, but I think if they would have made a third one of those movies, it would have dived into time travel. And just imagine if they did like a kind of X-Men Days of Future Past where the cast of the Cartoon Network version met the 2002 and 2004 cast. That would actually be amazing.
Do you guys know the story of what the third one was going to be?
I think it was meant to be set in either London or Scotland, and it was about time travel, and that's kind of all I know about it. Yeah,
like a few years ago or something, the whole script, I believe, leaked. We'll dive really into that once we get to the lake monster, but yeah, it was supposed to involve time travel and yet be a Christmas movie.
Okay.
Well, that would have been cool. They could have had like Ghosts of Mystery Inc.'s past, present, and future. That would have been brilliant. But I think there's something with the
kind of like the end of the Cyber Chase with the like past, present.
Yeah.
There's something about theatrical Scooby Doo releases, or not theatrical, but just live action, that it just doesn't want them to have a third one. And maybe even is like more big budget type movies that they don't want. It's like if they have a Scoob,
third live action.
Yeah, if they have a Scoob 2 or something. That would be such an on the nose thing. It's literally the curse of the trilogy. They just don't want them to have a third live action movie for any of them. And I'm not convinced our grandchildren are gonna see one of those come into fruition. Like, why? I don't know why. It's coincidence, obviously, but I don't know. It's a shame because both of the third ones I'd want to see. Somewhere in the multiverse, there's an alternate Millie, alternate JayBee, and alternate smASH that are gonna cover the third live actions one day. But unfortunately, that's not the reality we're in right now. But fingers crossed. So does anyone else have anything to say about Matthew Lillard coming in as Shaggy at this point?
No, I do have a few things about the opening title sequence.
I mean, I'm all over that. So let's go into that because I like hearing you talk about Scooby Doo.
So yeah, the opening title is very fun, very over the top animation and stuff. And they'll do this style for a few more movies leading up. And I really do like how instead of just hopping into the end of the mystery, we kind of got somewhat of the story throughout the credits and then leading up. I was like, okay, I at least feel like I don't need to know the story behind that monster. But actually, this art style was a rejected series art style that they were going to do. And so instead of scrapping it all together, they used it for a few movie intros.
Interesting.
So can I just ask, the intro that they used, do you know the bit where they were running between doors? Had that initially been kind of created ready for a TV series? Could that be part of the reason the titles were so long, to kind of get the most out of what they'd created?
I'm not sure how far in development they really were with that animation style, nor do I even know what that series was going to be about. Was it Mr. Incorporated's original art style? Was it something completely different? Because I know at one point they wanted What's New Scooby Doo was originally going to be about Mystery Inc.'s kids rather than bringing Mystery Inc. themselves into the 21st century. So anyway, so I'm not entirely sure how much of it they already had and brought in. So yeah, I just know at least the core 4 gang members had already been designed for a while now, but was just sitting on a shelf collecting dust. So they were like, let's use it.
Oh my gosh, that just gave me an idea for a third live action movie.
Won't happen.
No, you saying about Mystery Inc.'s kids, it just reminds me that the trailer for Ghostbusters Afterlife has come out recently, and it's imagine that. They could do the kids of Mystery Inc., and it's the cast of the 2002 movie just coming back in 20 years. That would be hype. You could literally have Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. as a married couple with little mystery kids. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. But I do like this a lot, and it's interesting that Millie compared it to a pup named Scooby Doo, because I literally wrote down that it reminds me of one of the chases from there when they would stop in the middle of it to have a little boogie. And they don't even know, and it's oh my gosh, I'm getting vibes, and I really like it. But the song itself, I kind of feel maybe didn't do the animation justice. It was a nice song, but because there was so much going on the screen, for the first time in a while, I was a bit okay, the song's cool, but I'm more focused on the visuals, where I think there's some later on, and I forgot what it is, maybe it's stage fright, where cool stuff is happening on the screen, but I'm kind of headbanging that I don't really notice it that much. But that's kind of neither here nor there. It's a good song. It's a good intro.
Speaking about songs, real quick. So this movie technically had 3 songs that were recorded specifically for the movie. The opening title. Then we had one in the middle of the movie during a montage sequence, and then the credits song. But this is the first movie since Alien Invaders that got a soundtrack release.
Oh, that's actually sick. Oh, I wish I wasn't not spending money anymore. I want to find that now.
They unfortunately they didn't do physical. It's all digital.
Oh.
So
is that still available? Because I think I looked for the longest time and I can't really find anything. I guess maybe Spotify or some stuff?
should be. It should be.
I kind of want to check. That's crazy. But yeah, the intro song is good, and I like how that they recorded them originally for it. It's almost like a part of me can't believe that it's the same turnaround from the last film to this film as has been the case with a few of the others. So I don't know, it seems like maybe they prepared this for a bit longer than the others, but I'm not sure. I can't really... Okay, so I'm just looking at albums now, and I can't really find much in the way of it. At least on iTunes, maybe it'll be different for the others. Oh, I found a Camp Scare soundtrack.
Okay, yeah, there's one for Camp Scare, and it should be by the same artist.
I actually can't find... Oh wait, no, I found it. Oh yeah. So we've got Scooby, Abracadabra-Doo, Magic, and Tomorrow. Ah, thank you. Okay. I might do that now. That's actually sick. So you learn something new every day. Please, everyone, go and download that and have a good time.
Just for laughs. That's who the album's by.
Just for lols. So,
Yep.
Millie.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about the opening titles?
No.
What about you, Smash?
Nope, I think I'm good there.
So I guess we should dive straight into the movie now. So I actually kind of don't really know where we are. Like, we see that this is like a slime monster that they're apprehended. And right off the bat, it's really nice to see their classic outfits back. I feel like that's something I really missed in the What's New era. So it's just amazing to have that come back. It makes me feel a lot more like I'm in... I don't know, like I'm in the mystery world as opposed to in a subsection of it.
Yes.
And like we said, the intro led into the main story, a little bit like the Goblin King. But on the intro being a bit long leading into it, it almost reminds me of the deleted 2002 intro that literally showed Daphne getting kidnapped by the Lunar Ghost. And they said that they cut that for time. And I kind of see why after this. Because it wasn't like a boring intro, but it was kind of like, it could have done with maybe 20 or so seconds trimmed off, especially when this storyline here is cut so short. Like, it's not like they were building up into, you know, if you pay attention during the opening credits, you're going to know things that are important for the story. It's just, here's some really long credits. And then, you know, like, Velma doesn't even bother to say the exposition. She just gets a phone call, and then we're diving into our main story. So it's like, okay, you know, maybe they didn't want to spend so much time setting up the Lunar Ghost in the 2002 movie because it's literally 10 minutes of mystery. And equally here, they've kind of kept in a longer intro for what's 5 minutes of mystery. So that's kind of ridiculous. But I'm interested to know more about, is it Velma's sister, Madeline? If they ever crop up again, or if they're even referenced beforehand?
Nope, she's non-existent currently. Only in this movie. Haven't heard of her or from her since.
Okay, so
It is strange how, like, they can have characters and like that, right?
Like, they just have random family members show up.
Like Daphne's cousin.
And Fred's parents, who then he has different parents. It's a bit ridiculous. But we get introduced to a new kind of setup here, which is the mysterying GPS.
Yes.
I don't know. I think this had a real potential to get very annoying very quickly. And to an extent, at least for me, I think it did. But I think it would have only been annoying to me if I was just watching this out of the blue. If I'd gone, okay, I'm in the mood for a Scooby Doo movie, or I want to dive back into it, I'm just going to pick this one up because it looks cool. But with it being as part of a retrospective series, I'm kind of thinking, okay, so we've seen a lot of what I would associate with childhood technology in terms of just standard cars and standard things. Maybe the odd phone has a flashlight torch, but that's not what I'm associating with the technology of childhood. And now it's kind of like, okay, so I'm in a new era of Scooby-Doo where they're going to be more technologically based in things that I recognize today. And so to that point, the sat-nav kind of being a bit confusing worked for me. But if people do find it annoying, I can completely understand why. Do you find it annoying, Millie?
I do. I mean,
It is good. It is good. And oh, was there like a special voice actor for the sat nav?
I think so. Was it? But you didn't say there was any like high.
I don't recognize any of like the high guest stars because for the What's New era, everyone I could go, oh my gosh, that person, this person. But with this, I didn't really recognize anyone.
Yeah, really the only like I guess bigger one, but he does so many like voice acting stuff that he just kind of gets put in almost everything is D. Bradley Baker.
Oh, who do they play and what are they known for?
I think one of the biggest ones you'll be like, oh, okay, but like it's not like you wouldn't even be able to tell is he was Perry the Platypus.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh.
So
okay,
he did
JayBee?
Sherman.
Oh no, I am a bit starstruck by that. Like Perry, all Perry does is like a little thing, isn't it? Like I don't know how to make the noise, but I guess that's a skill in of itself. So yeah, we learn about this Seamus O'Flannery, which to me is just really funny because it's like that TikTok meme. Like if someone were to say, "Tell me you're Irish" without telling me you're Irish, you could just hold up a puzzle. So they've used a very generic naming system there. Huge apologies to any Seamus O'Flannerys listening to this, but very. Let's lay it on home where this person is from and what their background is, which is fair enough. And then, like Millie says, we go into this kind of magical academy, and I'm wondering now. I'm not thinking Hogwarts instantly, but I'm wondering if it could have been inspired by that. But ultimately, I'm not really getting too much of a vibe from that. But then we get Madeline that's introduced, and honestly, they seem really they seem sweet enough. They're not overtly irritating character for me, and I did like how she was like still enamored with Shaggy, even though Shaggy had like his face stuffed with like Scooby snacks or something. But it almost seems creepy to me because if you consider in the original show Velma is say 15 and Shaggy's maybe 16, at least that's what it says on like the back of the kind of figures, and if this is like Velma's younger sister, are they like 14, 13? Because I don't know, I just felt very uncomfortable in any scenes that Madeline and Shaggy shared together.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like you said, I don't know, I personally managed to justify in my head that Velma's not younger. I don't ever seem to be reminded of the fact.
No, I mean, they do seem a bit more like mature and smart compared to some of the others sometimes. But at the same time, it's like, this is definitely a younger sister by, we don't know really how much by. So it's just, I don't know, I just can't look at the screen when they're interacting because it's like, why is this going on? And especially considering it's the same time that supposedly Shaggy and Velma are meant to be together. And it's like, well, what's Shaggy doing? Does he have like a thing for the Dinkleys? I don't know what he's doing there. And we never really had that before. We've never had a romance. Obviously we've had things in the past that we're going to see again where, either Fred's jealous because Daphne's talking to someone or Daphne's jealous because Fred's talking to someone. But that's all we've got. We've never had like an overt, oh, I like this person type thing. And I don't think I like it. But
I've never liked the whole Madeline and Shaggy, and I kind of get attacked for it because I know a handful of my viewers over on my channel like them together and see them as endgame, even though we've never seen Madeline again. And I'm just like, it's the same feeling as Shaggy dating Velma, and it's just awkward, and I don't like it.
It's kind of, I don't know, it strikes me as a bit difficult to fathom than the fact that we're not even given a reason why this happens. If like Shaggy reciprocates these feelings, I mean, we kind of are on the fence about that. But yeah, honestly, I'm still pairing Shaggy with an alien over this person.
Me too.
But yeah, maybe that'll lead that will lead us to get the same scrutiny. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. I don't think that Madeline and Shaggy are like a lost hope. You know, maybe if they were to do in the future, maybe they could bring her back and add some more context to the situation or build upon that story. I mean, this was in 2010 or so. So it is leaving it quite late, but if they did bring them back, I wouldn't be like, oh no, this is going to be a bad movie. I'd definitely welcome them back and just see what they have to do, but just for what we see now, I'm not a big fan. But I've got to say, this is the movie that I've assessed the most, to the point where I'd almost go as far to say that this is perhaps the most well thought out movie, or at least the most challenging, because obviously Zombie Island does its kind of thing where it's all like, I guess, dark and stuff. But on Zombie Island, you're literally on an island alone with 3 or 4 characters, and then it's like, well, okay, we've got X amount of suspects, so it is what it is. But with here, I'm like instantly thinking, is it this person for that reason? To the point where I'm actually proud to announce that I figured out who did it quite early on.
You did.
But we introduced to this, what is it, Whirling Merlin?
We are, and honestly, they mentioned something quite early on that I have a bit of a problem with. Don't they say they brought the house over from Ireland?
Brick by brick.
Yeah.
Really?
I was like,
I didn't catch that.
I was a bit like, come on, this is
up.
This is a little bit far-fetched now, isn't it?
Okay, you know what's funny though? I'm wondering if it was just kind of a callback to original Scooby Doo, because you watch any of the original Scooby Doo episodes, and if they're ever going to a castle, in those original series, there's always mention of this castle was brought here brick by brick, and so it's just a staple at this point that if you see a castle, it has been moved brick by brick.
It's mad. I mean, a decent callback that I didn't really get, but just knowing that, I guess it's nice to kind of have that homage, even though it adds a bit of kookiness to it. One thing that I didn't like after that is we get Crystal, not Crystal, not Alien Crystal.
Yeah, new Crystal.
But we get a new Crystal the second, kind of appearing.
The non-alien.
And I don't know. Obviously, everyone listening knows, everyone here knows that I'm a big Daphne fan. But I don't like how Daphne instantly just looks at Crystal and goes, oh, well, clearly this school doesn't have a very strict dress code. And it's like, well, I don't even think that what Crystal is sporting is particularly scandalous. And
no, it's not.
It isn't. Like,
it's just that you're supposed to back Daphne, I think. So.
And honestly, if anyone's going to back Daphne, I think it's going to be me. But I just don't see how being that overtly rude to someone within seconds of meeting them is in any way justified. I guess Fred just like, he's instantly there drooling, he's got his like googly eyes bulging from his head, so maybe she's a bit like, that's annoying. And if it was the first time we saw that, maybe we'd be a bit more on Daphne's side, but you just kind of sigh at this point and it's like, oh, we've seen this so many times, and you know that no matter what, it's gonna go nowhere. So yeah, that's something that I didn't really like. But in terms of the character of Crystal, do we think that they're meant to be likable, or do you think that we're meant to be on Daphne's side for the most part? I guess we can start with smASH.
My biggest thing with her was I don't know. I feel like they really tried to push the gardener landscaping dude as being the villain for a while, but then they also were like, ooh, maybe it's the maid lady. And so like I get what they were trying to do of being like, oh, it's funny, Daphne feels threatened by her, but I also wonder if they were also trying to be like, oh, Crystal could be it too, because at one point, Daphne was like, how'd you know how to stop the machine? And she's like, it said stop or whatever. And so I just feel like her character the most didn't have like any sort of backstory to have any sort of care for her, and not that I was like disgusted by her because of Daphne's comments and stuff, but I didn't like lean one way or another with her. She was another kind of Snooki from Aloha, where I'm just like, I don't really care about you.
Yeah, and I guess if Crystal had come in whilst being rude as such, like if there was a way that Daphne could have said something that would be a genuine criticism or something, but instead it's just about the dress code. And and to this day, I'm not just trying to like be innocent for like the purpose of the show. I genuinely do not know what Daphne's issue was with the outfit, and if it's about like, I guess at school, I know that the girls in my year were often told off for like skirt length and stuff, but it's like, well, Velma's skirt looks significantly shorter than Crystal's, so I don't know.
Well,
it's just I didn't get it.
It's like, Daphne, do you want to? I mean, I know she was, dressing up for the occasion of what she was doing, but should we talk about your ballerina outfit? I think that's a bit more scandalous than what Crystal's wearing.
I know. I mean, and perhaps it's best for my own personal reputation that we don't talk about the ballerina outfit. But you're right, and obviously, like, it's a situation where because of what someone's wearing, it doesn't dictate what type of person they are or something like that. But it's like if she comes out of the gate instantly criticizing what someone else is doing, then it's kind of like that thing where, yeah, people in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones, like. So that's what I kind of thought. But then we get a few more contenders here. There's like a whole cast of crew. Like, I think it's like the reverse of Chill Out for me. There's like with Chill Out, I found no characters that I was really going, oh, they're kind of fun and interesting. But here we have like a whole different story. We've got obviously Merlin shows up, but then there's also Marlin, who we then find out is their brother. And also, I wrote down this name, but I can't remember who it is, so maybe you can remind me. But there's a Mr. Curdles. Is that the kind of rich businessman?
Yeah, he was the dude that owned the ice cream company. Colonel. I'm trying to find his name.
Is Mr. Curdles.
Calvin Curdles.
Yes, Calvin Curdles, who kind of has the same type of story arc, at least so it seems, as Senor Fuente from Monster of Mexico. They just seem like someone that's just after this bit of land.
Oh, little fun fact about him. If you remember, in the Mystery Incorporated episode where they're at the like Renaissance fair and it's this whole debate of knights versus pirates type thing. If you remember the like jester dude who they called Littlefoot, this is the same voice actor.
Oh, I thought you were gonna bring it back to Nick Avocados then, because very similar characters.
Yeah, true.
That's cool. I like it when they kind of cross over with stuff like that in terms of voices, because it just kind of reminds us that like the universe does remember them. Like, I don't know who it was, but there was someone that played a character in one of the older movies and they brought them back in one of the later ones. And I don't know, for all it isn't a continuity of the character, it's just kind of nice for them to know that, oh yeah, they did a really good job this time, they're talented, so let's bring them back. So I like that. Now I had a bit of a stinky here. And I'm not going to say what I thought the name was, but what is the groundskeeper called? I've written down, I think, an unpleasant word here.
Amos.
Because I thought it was something differently. I just think I'm going to call them the groundskeeper just to be a bit safe. But all throughout my notes, I'm writing down this bizarre word. But yeah, so... Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think this is the point now, coming on later on, where I'm starting to figure out the mystery a bit. Because Madeline mentions that I think Marlin was into puppets. And so instantly I'm thinking, okay, the Griffin could just be a fancy puppet, and I think that's what it transpires to be. But then again, I don't know how obvious that was. So, from your memory, smASH, how long did it take you to figure it out back then, or did you not really figure it out until the explanation?
Yeah, when I was younger, I honestly never really tried to figure it out. I just kind of let it play and, saw who it was. Rewatching it, I did remember who it was. And again, though, it's easier to pick up on, like, oh, he did this or they did that. And so, like, first time seeing him on screen, I was like, it's kind of easy to assume him because he's so, like, oh, my life and da da da, and I don't get enough credit. And I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of easy to tell it's him.
And Millie, did you ever have any, like, did you figure out who it was, or was it just not really something that you were thinking of?
I didn't think about it.
No. I just seem to have this weird, annoying thing where whenever I'm watching something, like, I think we've mentioned it in the show before, but Millie and I love watching this program on BBC called Death in Paradise. And when we're watching it just on iPlayer, because the show was airing when we were like doing our university thing, so we were quite often like revising and studying, or like AKA making videos whilst that was airing. So we'd go back to it on iPlayer, and every time someone was on the screen, I was like pausing it, saying, "Oh, it could be them for this reason and that reason." So you know what? Maybe you don't want to do the Discord call with us, smASH, because I just think I'd get annoyed. But I'm always trying to figure stuff out. I think that's fair to say.
This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I was just kind of looking stuff up about this movie. But a little fun fact that I completely forgot about. We do actually see Madeline one more time in the movie Frankencreepy as a flashback.
As a flashback to this movie, or a flashback to just a random Madeline scene?
I can't remember exactly.
So how far along is it? Because I know we've got Camp Scare next. Then I think another one. Then it's Music of the Vampire.
So Frankencreepy is like 8 or 9 movies ahead. It depends on if we're doing the puppet one or not.
Oh well, I was gonna do all of them. I mean, the puppet one's good. We finally managed to get a hold of that on DVD. For some reason, it was like twice the price of all the others, but we did manage to find it, which is good news.
Yeah, that one has a story that we'll get into when we get there.
Actually, there's the bonus features in this DVD called like Scooby Doo Puppets, and we didn't watch it. This was like the only time that we've done a watch of this, and we haven't watched the bonus features. But definitely, I mean, maybe that's what tipped me off, in all honesty. Like, if puppetry was being mentioned here, and I've also seen in the opening title, or like in the menu, that puppets are a feature of the main, of like the bonus features, it's like, oh, well, clearly puppets are important, so I'll latch onto that. So I don't know, maybe I got tipped off a little bit. But have you seen those bonus features?
Yes.
Are they good? I don't want to say are they good, but are they interesting?
They're fine for what they are.
Okay, well, I'll definitely be sure to check them out. So we're on to the point of the movie now where I believe it's Madeline kind of ambushes Shaggy and convinces them to go and find this mysterious thing.
Yeah, the like time dial, whatever.
It's weird because they call it a sundial, and yet it responds to the moon.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that like Zombie Island's guilty of the same thing, but it just confused me a lot. But I don't know, this is the point where it seems to go a bit off the rails for me personally, or at least like the first time watching it, I've only seen it once, where the Griffin appears and the secret door opens, and they get chased by the Griffin, and it doesn't really have a song to it or a theme or anything. And when I was first watching this, I was a bit like, okay, not every chase scene has to have a song. It's certainly not, I've definitely been critical of when they first see the monster and they first encounter them and it's a song, because that just takes all the weight from the creature. It's then just, okay, what are we jamming to this time? So I did like how it wasn't that, but it just seemed a bit awkward without a song. Just like, there's not really any contact between the gang and the Griffin. It's just kind of, I don't know, it almost feels a bit like filler.
Yeah.
But where are we now after this chase scene? I think, are they still eating?
Yeah, did they come back while they were eating?
I think the gang stay there to eat while Shaggy and Scooby are going off on, I guess, another misadventure, although it doesn't really last too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get more of Daphne being jealous of Fred. Because I think they're walking back to, I guess, their rooms or their dormitories, and Daphne is like, "Oh well, why are you talking about Crystal like that?" Because I think Fred's like, "Oh, did you see how amazing Crystal was?" And Daphne's like, "Well, all she was doing was pointing," and she was like, "Oh, but
Yeah.
did you see how effortlessly she was pointing?" And again, it's kind of cute, but we've seen this a lot at this point.
Yeah.
Millie.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion on, I guess, this kind of triangle between Fred, Daphne, and Crystal? Is it something that you really paid much attention to, or what do you think? Do you think it's just one more time that we've seen this type of thing happen?
I just think it plays on some emotions that I don't know. I don't think that it's necessarily important. I do think that they often just throw it in because it's a given at this point that, Daphne likes Fred, we've got to make her work for it.
Yeah, which is weird because it's like they're never gonna get to a stage where, even if they do the best love triangle in the world for one of these movies, and even if they do like resolve it by the end of it, that when they announce the next one, it's most likely gonna have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so this is the one thing that's difficult, is that there's not really any mark of any progression, that all the movies could exist separately.
Yeah, which is good, I guess. Like, it just shows that, like, when you go into, say, somewhere like a DVD shop here, like HMV or something, you can literally find Abracadabra-Doo next to Zombie Island, next to, all these types of other movies, and it's like you can pick up free, watch them all, and you're probably going to understand what's going on. But at the same time, it's like, well, don't recycle storylines. Like, we've done a good job telling us that there's this love triangle going on once. Okay, use it again if it fits with the story. But I don't feel like there's any place for it in this movie. Like, what's the point? We've just got, I guess, someone else that we're meant to be a bit suspicious of, but that's about it. And I've also written down here, why am I just accepting that there's a friendly lion just sat there? Do we get any backstory to this lion? I guess they're like a magic, I don't know what to say, a magic lion, but do we have any context around this lion?
Not that I ever picked up on. He was just like there as part of the show.
That's confusing because I just kind of get so much of a disconnect. I'm not trying to like link the lore to it to like different films, but just going back to Zombie Island again, where you see how scared Shaggy and Scooby were of a character like Rojo, and when they get a fake out later where it's not the Griffin, it's just the lion with some birds on it, it's kind of like, I want to think that Shaggy and Scooby would still be scared about that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense that they're only really scared of the main monster. One thing I did really like is the magic class montage.
Yeah.
Because this to me was peak. Because it gave us the song that you'd get in a chase, but not to the point where it's detracting from the danger of a villain. It's progressing the story, and it's ultimately reminding us why this gang is together in the first place. They're just having so much fun, figuring out the mystery and doing some background research on the magic that could help them solve the mystery. And it's like, I don't feel like with any of these movies we've ever seen them just really enjoying working something out. It's just kind of been, we want to go on holiday, oh no, now there's some wiki tiki's coming on. We want to go on a cruise, oh now there's pirates happening.
There's certainly a lot more, I don't know, for me personally, I think there's a lot more maybe emotional character stuff behind this one, because at that montage, isn't that a similar time to Velma catching Daphne dancing because she just wants to
because
improve and be different and get Fred's attention?
Because she's like, oh, I don't want to be danger prone anymore, like I want to be like this, which is actually a compelling story. I just wish that they'd lingered on it more, because obviously if she's known as this person that just gets into trouble, and if she likes Fred and Fred's just like, okay, I want to see this person because, you know, like obviously it's played off as a bit of a joke, but you know, she points effortlessly, and it's kind of like, well, is she convinced that if Daphne points, she's going to end up setting a trap or like falling into a pit?
See, this is
even
the
Velma
thing.
says, you normally knock my glasses off.
I was just about to interrupt you to say that.
No, I'm so sorry.
It seems that they try to initiate some kind of story arc here that I personally didn't see existing. Like, haven't we just come off the back of the samurai sword, where she was literally like this warrior woman who, you know, defeated the main person in her first day there, to then go back to being like, oh, I'm just so clumsy and good for nothing. And
well, I guess it's different universes with different art styles, but I do get what you're saying. There is a disconnect, because at this point, I'd like to think that the audience might have begun to associate Daphne more with that image, like you say, we've got Samurai Sword, there's obviously, like, you know, Warrior Daphne, Fighter Daphne in the live-action movies. But there is a compelling story there, because obviously if she feels that there's this crystal that can come in and she's like not making any mistakes, in contrast to how she feels about herself, like that's genuine character progression. But then even this ballet scene, it's like it's then cast aside. But I don't know, I feel like there was a decent story to tell there, but ultimately it just falls into the category of, oh, here's another like Lena and Simone issue, or it's
almost like here's something I'm gonna start, it's going to be on the back burner and I'll come back to it, and then they forgot to come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like a cutscene or something. So yeah, another thing about that kind of montage before we get into some of the other stuff is I thought it was so hilarious how like the miserable maid was just like presenting the different names of like the things, and it was just funny because they were like the wackiest names, like the magical disappearing bunny rabbit act, and she's just holding the sign up with like this scowl on her face. I just thought that was hilarious. But I think
I know, I love the whole gags.
It's just great. The side characters, like even the ones that don't seem like anything, have a backstory, and again, it just seems like Crystal's the only one without that kind of backstory, because it does feel that there's some place for her in this movie. Like, she seems prominent, and yet at the end of the day, the groundskeeper has more backstory. The maid has more backstory.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you're gonna make Daphne a really strong, like somebody who has a really strong character, if you want to make her so self-conscious, come on, at least do something with this character that gives her something to maybe worry about. Like, I don't feel like there was any kind of different level of her flirting with Fred or anything like that would make Daphne be like, oh no, what's going on? Like, it's not been worse than it was in previous movies.
I agree, and it almost seems like this movie should have taken place in different parts, because we get, I think, like, obviously we were discussing that Daphne in this movie has quite, I guess, a sexy ballerina costume. I think that's fair to say. But the issue is that because she's so, like, this seems like a fleet of the moment thing. She's met this woman, she's got self-conscious and all that. Then she has a ballerina outfit that night in her exact size. And it's like, where did she get that from? Did she make it? Did she order it on Amazon Prime? Like, or, I don't know. Like, it's there, but I don't know. It just seems weird that these characters seem to kind of get outfits that are perfectly tailor-made to them, but this kind of insecurity seems like a fleet of the moment thing. It would have made a bit more sense if maybe instead of like a magic act, and obviously this would be changing the movie dramatically, but if you're gonna have like a Daphne-centric story, this could be maybe Daphne enters a ballet contest by mistake, and Fred is like in love with this person that's doing everything right, and Daphne is just like falling over. That would have made a bit more sense if they were gonna go down that route. But yeah, ultimately we've got dazzling Daphne, as she calls herself, there with Velma, and they just trigger a trap. I don't know, or like another trap, I guess, a secret room. But smASH, what's your opinion on that? Do you think that there was possibly some other storyline that was cut short?
I feel like for the longest times, this iteration of movies, and we're still in them, even though, they have changed a bit here and there, but I just feel like this universe of movies, I guess we'll say, or this timeline, I think originally wanted to be one that like would continue off of one another, and so they started these stories in hopes of exploring them more as the movies went on, but then kind of just like realizing like halfway through, like, oh, but we can't guarantee everyone's gonna watch all these Scooby movies like they watch Marvel movies, so we can't have too many things going forward that they'd have to catch up on in case they catch it on Cartoon Network or they randomly see it at the store and want to pick it up. And so I just felt like it was this weird balance of like they want to explore these deeper stories but just never were brave enough to commit to fleshing them out.
I mean, that's my kind of confusion of like, sometimes why don't they go as dark as they clearly want to? Especially maybe in reference to Return to Zombie Island, because it's kind of like, I understand there's like this mentality, especially like I think this is just maybe, I guess, some like more our generation thinking that what we grew up with is superior to what they have nowadays or whatever, but it's kind of like the genre can be as dark as the darkest moment in these movies, if that makes sense. Like, it's like I was saying, you can go into a DVD store and you could have, say, oh, what would you call like the lightest of these movies? I guess maybe it's like Mystery Map, one of the Lego movies. But you could literally have Mystery Map right next to Zombie Island, or the 2002 movie right next to like Lego Beach Blowout Bash. And so it's kind of like, if you're going into a shop and you let your kid, if you let your friend, well, you don't need to let your friend, but if your friend wants to pick up some DVDs, or if you're looking for DVDs and like you're kind of new to it, you could literally pick the most child-friendly one, or you could also pick like the ones where it goes properly dark. And it's kind of like, if they want to explore darker themes with some of these things, or if they want to take things to another level, it's like, I don't know why they'd be scared to go that far when ultimately it's going to be bundled with the darkest it's gone to in like the shop window anyway.
My biggest thing with Scooby Doo, I mean, I love Scooby Doo, I do, but I see where you're coming from, and like I feel a lot of it too. Especially right now. Right now they are in this weird experimental phase of like, do we want to do continuations? Do we want to do reboots? Do we want to go dark? Do we want to go lighthearted? Like, I just feel like no one can decide right now over at Warner Brothers what they want Scooby Doo to be, and they keep like. Scooby-Doo gets very much marketed as a family property, which, yes, families can watch it. Any age can watch it. But I unfortunately feel like the writers and stuff of the movie kind of make it more so family-oriented, but then it gets marketed more so sometimes as a kids movie. So then, it's like, oh, the writers, whoever writes the next one sees that and is like, oh, I better be careful, on what I do and whatever. And I just wish they would move Scooby Doo more towards the family genre. And like, you know, on store shelves, at least here in America, I don't know how it is for you guys, but like here, movies are separated into like genres on the shelves, and Scooby Doo's always in like the kids section. And I'm like, can we move it to the family genre? And that way, you know, it wouldn't go that deep, but I feel like they'd have more opportunity to be a bit more darker and open with some of these stories, with, you know, without getting in trouble of like, it's a kids movie, of more so saying it's a family movie, so we advise you to watch it with your kids, type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because, like, obviously, you know, I know that, like, the community on Twitter and everything, and obviously your amazing subscribers, we're all the type of people that, especially now, like, you know, Courage, when that was up for pre-order on Amazon, it was okay, we will get that, we will pre-order that, and that's all well and good, but it's like, at the base level of it, it doesn't matter how dark it is. Like, at the end of the day, like Mystery Map and Zombie Island, like, you could have had Zombie Island in 1999 and Mystery Map in 2000, and now from a perspective of 2021, nobody would know. Like, that could have been the case. But it's like, it's the same for us. I guess the main shop that we've got here is HMV, and they do like all the DVDs, vinyl records and stuff like that. And very much Scooby-Doo is in the kids section as well. But to a point where, like, you've literally got, like, the first live-action movie in with all the others. And it's kind of like, I don't know if I'd call that specifically a kids movie. Like, there's some stuff that's said in that first one that it's like, I don't know if I'd, you know, if I'd be comfortable showing someone so young that movie. Even though I watched that movie very young, it'd be one that I would check again. But in terms of, I guess, parents' discretion, I would say you would probably watch something beforehand, right? I mean, it's very different with Scooby-Doo because, like you say, it has become very much a family brand, to the point where if you pick something up, the name alone kind of reassures you enough that there's not going to be anything too outrageous in it. But at the same time, I just feel that if you're so concerned about it, you might want to check beforehand, because there's definitely some movies, and I've mentioned this again, like, my mum got me Howard the Duck when I was like 6 years old. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, but I should not have been watching that at 6 years old. But obviously, because it's Howard the Duck, I guess my mum picked it up and thought, oh, this is like Donald Duck, this is Mickey Mouse or something, this is going to be a nice, friendly movie. But it's not always, that's not always how it turns out.
Okay, you know what I really want Scooby to do? And I know it's not this easy, but I just feel like, at least as of the last 5 years or so, Scooby-Doo... Okay, so Scooby-Doo has this stigma of, for whatever reason, of like, oh, it's a kid's property. But we are finally, slowly getting out of that, because, you know, a lot of people, it's like, okay, so you can watch Adventure Time and still be cool, you know, you can watch... I don't know, Disney Channel stuff and still be cool at this age. Like, why can we not watch Scooby-Doo and not be told, oh, that's a kid's show, why are you watching that? Like, I mean, that's never gonna go away, unfortunately, as the world is. And I just wish, you know, that Scooby-Doo, or just anything in general, you know, you can enjoy it no matter what age, you know, you just enjoy what you do. But I just kind of wish for Scooby-Doo now, where it's been over 50 years, they would... not that I necessarily want, like, blood and gore and murders to happen in Scooby-Doo, but... And not even, like, make it PG-13 or whatever, which that's a rating here. I don't know what it would equal out to you guys. But I just kind of wish, again, because they are exploring continuations and sequels right now, you could kind of count the Courage one as that. To make Scooby-Doo a property, I guess that's for a little older of an audience. Not, again, it doesn't have to go super, super deep, but just allow some of the things that they keep tiptoeing to happen now. And you know, like we can take Return to Zombie Island for example. That was the easiest one. Of like, you know, the original movie was so much darker. Was it super dark? No, but it was dark for Scooby Doo. So why could we have not at least matched that? Like, why do we think kids today have gotten, you know, more scared than they were back in 1998 or whatever? And so again, it wouldn't be easy because of how long Scooby Doo has been around and how much it's been marketed as like family and kids, you know, kind of property, but with how much the creators and people at Warner Brothers that work on these movies interact with the fans now too, I'm like, they need to know, like they have to realize that a majority of the people that are giving them money, well, yes, there's this portion that is parents still, is a lot of us Scooby fans that are older now. And so, you know, like, again, I'm going to Return to Zombie Island just because that's the easiest example. That movie specifically should have been made for the fans, not for kids. You know, as fun as it is on its own thing, that is a movie that did not have to be made to be put out on a shelf and let kids pick it up, you know, freely. That should have been a movie that was, hey kids, you grew up with this one, now you're older. Let us give you a sequel that's at least as dark as the one you remember seeing. And so I just, at the end of all this, I just feel like this movie, and especially the next one, Camp Scare, goes a lot darker than even this one does. But again, it tiptoes a lot of things. I'm like, just please, at this point, give Scooby-Doo the credibility that people watching can handle these darker themes and handle these longer storylines and story arcs. Again, not that every movie has to connect, but like with the Daphne thing, if you're gonna start that, continue it and let it flesh out to the point of, you know, like the audience watching will appreciate and will follow along. Like, I really did enjoy what they did with Velma in the little trilogy they just did between Curse of the 13th Ghost and Happy Halloween, where she didn't want to admit that she was afraid, and that's why she was so in denial of supernatural things and whatever. But then they just had to go back in The Sword and the Scoob and say, oh, it's for kids, and we're flipping the switch, and now she's in denial again, and that whole arc doesn't matter. And like, just, anyway, there's my rant. It had nothing to do with anything.
No, I think you're right, especially in regards to like Zombie Island, Return to Zombie Island. Because like, if you're a parent or even a kid in the shop and you can choose a handful, if you really are in love with the idea of Return to Zombie Island or Zombie Island, even a parent's gonna say, like, oh, okay, well, you've picked up Return to Zombie Island, which you really want, but right next to that one, there's Zombie Island, so, like, let's get both of them. You know, like, you know, or we're just gonna waste money on something that you're not gonna understand. And so It's like, imagine you're just a parent, and I don't think there's anything that's gonna appall you about either of them. I don't think you're gonna give it much of a second thought, but a part of you is gonna go, wait, really? This is the follow-up? Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's like, when it's marketed the same way, it's like, well, what's happening? Like, because at the end of the day, like, Scooby is going to go on for so much longer. They're going to have, like, annual releases for forever. And so in, like, 30 years' time, when people are, like, just in, like, this massive wall of the different movies, they're going to pick up, like, the kids of the future, the parents of the future, even people that have, like, kind of done what we're doing. We're on, like, this awesome retrospective trip now. People are going to be on that retrospective trip in 5 years' time, and that's going to be a whole new generation of people that just look at those two movies together. And for all I don't think, like, either of them are, like, particularly bad or anything, like, the fact that it's so obviously meant to be a sequel, but it so obviously isn't a sequel, is so weird.
It is, and like, for that movie specifically, a lot of it could have been marketing, you know, oh, if we slap Zombie Island on, people will buy it. And it's like, okay, but you know who is going to buy that. Like, you know who is looking at that name. So if you're going to slap Zombie Island on that cover on that trailer, you need to know that those people are 20 plus years old now and are going to, be more eager to pick that up than a child passing by and being like, oh, Return to Zombie Island? The kid's not going to have a second thought of, there's an original,
Yeah, like they could have done that so much easier. They could have just put Scooby Doo on Zombie Island 2, and then that instantly guarantees that a lot of people that might have thought that it was cool just for like the cover or like the box art or anything, they would be sure to go back to the first one. And if them or their parents deem that they don't like the first one, or that the first one's too inappropriate to watch the follow-up, then the people that are going to watch the follow-up are just going to be people of that age. But then obviously, like, from a business standpoint, that's going to be like Warner Brothers or whoever going, oh, so a lot of the people that would have bought this movie probably aren't going to now. So from a sales point of view, it doesn't really make sense to slap the number 2 at the end of that, which is a bit of a shame, because if they did just call it something like that, then it would have got rid of all those problems.
We're not on that movie, but just while we're having this conversation, I want to know, because I have heard an interview with the writer of Return to Zombie Island, and he expressed how nerve-wracking writing that movie was at the time, and he expressed some of the ideas that he originally had and had to change and stuff. Unfortunately, I'm not bringing up names because I don't want anyone at Warner Brothers coming and yelling at me in the future. But there's just one dude right now that is in the Scoobert property hands right now that is I wouldn't say messing things up, but not letting things be what they should. And so with Return to Zombie Island specifically, it could have been way more of what we wanted, but unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's specifically this one guy, but he keeps being brought up in interviews about writing these movies, and so I'm like, he has a big say in what happens, and so that's why I'm kind of putting big blame on him. But I just think I just want to see what I was getting at. I want to see now, with Return to Zombie Island being out for a little bit, the sales numbers, the reception to it. Obviously, we know the reception to it, but what did that tell Warner Brothers? What did that tell that guy? What did was Warner Brothers like, oh, yay, they don't love the movie? Or were they like, oh, crap, maybe are they thinking about a third one now to fix it? Or are they like, we're never doing that again, moving on? They've had to realize now that Return to Zombie Island was watched by more of the original fans than kids. Even parents will write reviews and be like, this wasn't the movie I remembered, I don't know. It doesn't have a lot to do with this movie, but it's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and I honestly, and again, I don't want to linger on this too long, but I actually didn't, on second watching, I didn't hate Return to Zombie Island, but I'm so glad that that day that Millie and I were, and this was in October, when we did go into the local supermarket, and we literally looked at it and then just went, no, I think that's just going to upset us. I'm really glad that wasn't our introduction, because if it wasn't for, I guess, meeting you and having that 5-Star Talk podcast and then exploring more into the movies, going on the kind of nostalgic trip that's turned into a retrospective series, I'm sure that if we did pick up Return to Zombie Island that day, thinking about doing a second viewing of it wouldn't even be on the cards. It would just be kind of like, oh, that's disappointing. I guess the franchise has gone a different way now, and then that would have been it. Which is a shame.
Okay, so again, try not to linger on this, but just while I have the thoughts so I don't forget, I feel like, unfortunately, with Return to Zombie Island specifically, it's a little unfairly judged from a few points. Because it's trying to be a sequel, but not at the same time. but also because the movie before it was Curse of the 13th Ghost, and I don't know if either of you guys have seen that one yet, but when Curse of the 13th Ghost came out, like that movie was super, super hyped, and then, you know, it released and everybody was like so mad at the movie. Like I never seen a Scooby Doo movie like have so much hate towards it until that movie came out, and then all of a sudden I was just like, does anybody love Scooby Doo anymore? Because like all I'm hearing is hate, 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 and and a lot of it was how Velma's character was written in that movie, but also the ending of that movie too. Not everybody loves it. I, for one, actually really do enjoy it, but we'll get into it when we do. But so I feel like for those that did watch the movie, you know, Curse of the 13th Ghost before Return to Zombie Island, they already had a bad taste going into it, and were like, oh, we're just doing this again. Oh, it's gonna be crappy, blah blah blah. And so I feel bad for Return to Zombie Island. Again, not my favorite, but I also don't think it's quite as bad as a lot of people make it out to be.
Yeah, I mean, they do tend to have ups and downs with these things, like with the Mook animation films being a bit up there in terms of like maturity level, and then maybe the What's New ones bring them down a bit. Like you said, with this movie and the next one, I don't know if it's like a continuing thing. You get a bit more of like the sexualization of characters, and then I think it's gone not down to the point where it's immature, but definitely where everything's safe. And so perhaps they're going to get to another point where something is going to be raised up. Now, I guess the Mook animation movies leaned into more horror, and for some reason these ones maybe have more like, I guess, I don't know what to say, like attractively drawn people. So maybe the next one will be, okay, now we're going to make the themes a bit darker, or something like that. Like, there's going to be something else that comes along, like when they think that the series needs a bit more revitalization, it comes back to that. But it's always that thing where we're never really going to get a perfect movie for the time, really. Like, I think there's been occasions watching this where I thought, okay, I do remember how much I enjoyed Aloha Scooby Doo, or I do remember how much I enjoyed the Loch Ness Monster, but a part of me kind of wishes that we could see what that movie would have looked like in this art style, and or it, like, you know, if they weren't afraid to go to these themes with it. So I guess it's like that. It's like maybe, you know, when the next kind of spike comes up where they're exploring deeper themes, we're like, oh, I guess Return to Zombie Island was released this year. Like, I wish that this was the case. But this is why it annoys me so much when there's such backlash to newly announced things like the Velma series. Like, I know so many people don't like it, and that's fine, but then there's people that are like, oh, I'm not even going to watch it, I'm not even going to give it a chance, and it's like, okay, fine, but that's just so close-minded, and it's like, just because there's an edgy series coming up, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be family-friendly annual releases every year, or there's not going to be a family-friendly show running alongside that in the year. And it's like, if they're playing it so safe in the main movies and in the main TV shows, you know, kind of, as long as they don't market it so it looks like it's going to be part of that family-friendly universe, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's see something new, let's see something a bit different from that.
That's Scooby Doo is a property that is very unfairly has to sit on this balance and like continuously, you know, try to adjust its balance, because, you know, so many people are like, we want something different, we want something bold, we want this or that, and then they do something different, say the Velma series or whatever that's coming up, and people are like, well, no, I didn't want that. And it's like, but it's different. Like, give it a chance, see if you like it. If you don't, cool, move on. There's going to be something new, you know, within the next few months, you know? But, like, and so Scooby is constantly in this battle of trying something new, getting rejected, and then trying to adjust it and do it again.
Yeah, but it's like, I guess the kind of purists that are like, absolutely, you know, they're like, they think that the Velma series, the very idea of it is despicable. It's kind of like they're the same people that are saying that are like putting the original like, you know, Where Are You series on a pedestal. Like there was nothing wrong with that. It was just good, clean fun. You know, like it was wholesome for everyone. And it's like, you know, it wasn't the time, it's just the attitudes of when it was made. But like have you seen the episode where like the whole cast has to do like the most awful impersonation of Chinese accents in the world? Like it wasn't perfect. There's stuff that you can look back at and go, right, that was clearly wrong from a perspective of now. And it's like, you know, just let it be what it is. If you don't like it, don't watch it. There's still going to be things that you do like, but it's just at that level where maybe the people at Warner Brothers know that there's these two completely different types of people that they're almost going to get hate either way. If they do something that's family friendly, people are like, well, it's not, the series hasn't grown up with us. Why is that? If they try and do something the other way, it's going to be like, you know, well, this is awful, this is meant to be for kids. But I think the only example where Warner Brothers is without question at fault has to be Return to Zombie Island, just because of how it was marketed and how it's going to sit on shelves for years to come as part of that series. Oh wow, but that's quite the tangent really, but I enjoy that. I'm proud of that. Okay, so I guess we're back to our usual movie. That could be like half time. Oh no, Milly.
Asleep.
No.
Milly's very happy. I think Milly just like she knows when I've gone off on like a little tangent and I'm on a roll. But yeah, I guess we've got Daphne and Velma discovering this hidden path. And I think it's really nice to see two characters get their own kind of subplot, and it isn't Shaggy and Scooby.
Yeah.
But through that, we get a bit of a, again, I don't know if you want to call this a bit of an edgier reveal, but we learn in decent detail that this Mr. Curdles and the maid were in some type of relationship. But what is it that they used to find it? Is it a scrapbook? Because it almost looks like drawings. Like, oh, well, obviously they are drawing type of things, but like, how did he find out that information? I don't really remember.
Yeah, I believe they found kind of like a memory book, or maybe even like a year-ish book type thing from when the castle wasn't this magic school, years before.
Ah, maybe, because I was kind of thinking, like, who's taking photos of them kissing?
Yeah.
That's a bit ridiculous. But then we kind of get this fake out where they get chased by the Griffin, but it's actually the lion.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But we actually get to a section now where I'm actually a bit freaked out, and that's the section with the hanging puppets. Because when we first see them, they're actually creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that takes me right back to when I used to watch the live-action Goosebumps series, and that just, it was so unsettling. But it's not really lingered on that much, and we actually get a very funny moment where Shaggy's mocking the phrase, these meddling kids, and Scooby's going like, oh yeah, and your dog too, and it's actually the maid that he's doing that to, and that was just such a funny scene. But then we kind of go off on a tangent. There's the disco ball that comes down, and Shaggy's the one that says, Scooby Doo, where are you? Which I think is actually quite a nice touch, that like, if Matthew Lillard was the new kind of actor for this movie, that they get to say the iconic line. Because of course it's Matthew Lillard that says it in the first movie.
That's true.
Yeah.
But who says it in the second movie? I don't think it's said in the second movie, is it?
No, I don't think it is.
That's kind of weird. Maybe we'll find out when we rewatch that.
Trying to remember.
But yeah, so Shaggy says it here. So obviously the introduction of this massive special effect display is kind of like, clearly we're not going to get much in the way of supernatural things now. But I think SMASH mentioned this earlier, that Daphne calls Crystal out by saying, well, how did you know how to turn it off? And Crystal says, well, there's an off button and it says off on it, which would have been fine, but then like no one checks that that's actually the case. So
Yeah.
I don't quite know how that works out. But then here's where I don't really like the movie that much, because I don't think it hurts it overall. But then they decide to bring in a Banshee, and
Yes.
it just seems like there's so many monsters. Well, not so many monsters, but they bring in this monster so late into the movie that it's like, well, how are we meant to care about the monster? Where does the monster come from? Is this going to be like a double unmasking situation? Where it just gets a bit much. Like, I can't remember if there's ever been a situation like this before. I guess there's been, here's a fake witch, oh, but now there's a real witch that comes from that. It is literally, before we know about the Griffin, there's also a Banshee to deal with as well. But they go looking for the Banshee, and I actually forget why, but it's a cool change in setting, because I think maybe if the whole movie was set in this castle, it would have got a bit much. But the quest for the Banshee leads us to kind of like a water scene. They get to go on a boat, which is nice for the diversity of all the settings. But I found it very weird that this make-believe Banshee, this Banshee that it's later revealed to be a hologram, has a kind of almost attractive setting and then a monster setting. Because, and again, I'm not being weird or anything, but if this was like programmed and designed, why is there a hot setting? Like, why is there an attractive setting for this creature? Like it's glowing purple. It's not like it's meant to trick people into thinking it's a real person. They're gonna look at this purple person and go, oh, that's a bit strange, I wonder what that is. And then at that point it turns into the scary monster. So I don't know about that. But because, you know, Fred was kind of like, oh, they didn't really look scary, they look kind of nice, I was almost thinking that maybe it was a siren. That didn't really come to pass. But it would have worked better if they had just called it a siren, because that does seem more what it's like rather than a banshee.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because
Yeah.
in the next movie, in Camp Scare, there's a banshee. And I'm like, that one's more so a banshee than this one.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened there. But here's another scene that I did like. We get Daphne flipping over and acting like a full-on superhero. And I like that a lot. But again, it was just a lot of character progression that has been done off screen. Like, we see her in like the ballerina outfit, but then literally straight from that we get, you know, into this secret passageway where we find out the truth about the maid, and now she suddenly knows how to flip and stuff. So I don't know, it just feels like instead of adding in this banshee subplot, maybe adding in some more characterization for Daphne, Fred and Crystal, probably wouldn't have been so much action. I kind of feel like this moment would have felt a bit more deserved. Especially when you've got Fred then falling down that pathway and then saying, oh, I guess we all have danger-prone days, which would have been a great moment if it felt a bit more deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. Can we note Mindy Cohn's like how so Fred fell into the like whatever he fell into, he fell. And Velma has like the most disinterested delivery in the line of just, Fred, you okay? Like, I don't know what was going on with Mindy that day, but she was just like, well, I hope Fred's okay, but let's move on.
Yeah, screw Fred. Fred's annoyed as all this movie. Like, yeah, Fred, how are you? It's like having that kind of sarcastic older sibling that'll give you hot food, and then once you've burned yourself, they'll go, careful, it's hot.
To be fair, Fred's taking it from all angles in this. Like, you know, he's got the sat nav, like, okay, scarf boy.
Yeah.
He upsets Daphne and she's like, yeah, it's a scarf. It's like, no, this is a classic Fred look. Leave him alone.
To be fair, though, like when Fred's faced with the choice between Daphne and Crystal and he's choosing Crystal, I think he deserves the criticism. Like,
yeah, because I think
mad.
They did something a bit different with Crystal. I think normally they try and like make the woman intimidating for Daphne, whereas this one I don't think they did exemplify anything too much, did
No,
they?
she's just like a bland wizard. Like if she was given a compelling backstory, like with some of the others, like even if she had like the similar backstory to the maid, it would have been a bit more interesting. But they just don't even seem like a character in this universe. They just seem like an extra, and that's why they're not really intimidating as such. Although we do get a good line here, and I don't know who says it, but we go to the monoliths and someone says, "Check out these strange markings," and it just makes me think of Monsters Unleashed, because it's like, what are these strange markings? Words. I just like that a lot. Words. So we get some more escapades for the Banshee and the Siren. Think this so this is when we get the reveal that the Banshee Siren thing isn't real, because Scooby like trips on one of the cords that is powering the projection. But again, I don't know what Fred's thing is though, because Fred does comment that the Banshee is attractive, and obviously Fred is checking out Crystal in this movie, and then it's kind of like, obviously it's not Fred's fault if he's not into Daphne and whatnot, but it's kind of like, is there, I don't know, like it just seems weird to say, but Fred clearly doesn't have a particular type, so maybe it's just that they've known each other for that long that he just sees them all as this group of almost family that it'd be weird to think about stuff like that with. But I don't know, it's just kind of weird that like for all Fred's a character we're meant to like, we also see Fred kind of after everything except Daphne.
You know, I feel like Fred in this movie, like the more we talk about him, the more I'm like, what did Fred even do? Like, I just feel like he took a back seat in this movie, and besides like the GPS scene in the beginning, I'm like, he didn't really do much.
He literally, this movie is just Fred simping, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the extent, unfortunately. But I mean, he does it well. Like, you know, you kind of believe that he's genuinely the character of Fred being so excited to like, oh, like, did you see how she was pointing? Like, it's played well. It's just not too compelling. But okay, so we've got more stuff with the Banshee here, and honestly, I'm sorry if it seems like I'm just skipping over the Banshee stuff, but I genuinely didn't have that many notes about the Banshee, just because every time they were on the screen, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, this is just a bit of filler, and I'm not really getting that into it. But do you kind of have anything more to say about the Banshee? Because I'm kind of a bit turned, like, my brain's a bit turned off from the Banshee at the moment.
I just feel like it was introduced and then like figured out what it was super fast, to the point that like was it freaky looking? Sure, but I never felt like it was a threat with how fast it was. Oh, there's a Banshee. Oh, it's fake. You know?
Yeah. And it's not even that I am completely in love with the character of the Griffin. In fact, I think I'll go as far to say that from any movie we've watched before, this is the villain that I'm the least interested in. This is the monster that I don't really care about. But I am definitely more invested in the Griffin story than the Banshee story, to the point where I'm actually admiring things that I don't think I would have noticed before, like the fact that the mystery gang throw those kind of like paintballs at the Griffin to kind of keep them at bay is just nice to see. Again, pre-established items that were used in the montage are now being put to practical use is just really good storytelling. The fact that they've taken this kind of typical song and used it to set up so many things that we're going to see later on, and I really do like that.
I definitely feel like the Griffin overall, like, it's a cool villain, you know, and it's something different for Scooby, but I just never, I guess, felt like intimidated or threatened by it until really the end of the movie, by the time it was being unmasked. And I'm like, there wasn't enough like backstory to it that I really cared about it. And so like to be honest, overall, this is a villain I completely forget about.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. I kind of associated it in my mind of I don't really care about this villain because it's, I guess, something real that people talk about. But then we've just come off a series with like the Abominable Snowman and the Loch Ness Monster. But I kind of remember them more in terms of that. Like, I don't just think, oh, the Loch Ness Monster, that's something that is supposedly in Scotland. It's, oh yeah, the Loch Ness Monster, that was in this movie. But if you ask me about a Griffin in a week's time, I'm kind of like, what, like Grey Griffin, Peter Griffin? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
But yeah. So we've got a Shaggy wearing armor. Again, this is when Madeline's been captured and we're kind of on a quest to save them, which I guess is, to me, I didn't mind this really. Obviously, Shaggy wearing the armor and getting a bit of a sense of bravery for Madeline. Again, I don't really like the reason, but it was nice. And also, because there's this side character that can get caught, it then means that the whole gang can then help with that problem, as opposed to it being Daphne or someone that got captured and then it's just, oh, how do we save a member of the gang? It's, how does the gang do good for someone else? Which I thought was good. And then Calvin shows up. Calvin, oh gosh, what's the second name again? This businessman.
Colonel.
Yeah. And again, they imposed like an ultimatum on this Merlin person, which raises the stakes because the gang literally have to say at that point, give us an hour. And I don't feel like that's ever happened before. Like, they've never really been on a time limit as such. So all this is really, really great. I'm enjoying this a lot. Although I do question how that's meant to be achieved. Like, so Calvin literally believes that he can just bring in a contract at this point of view, yeah, and it will just be signed like that. Like, I'm sure it isn't that easy. And again, the Banshee appears yet again, and I'm at this point, I honestly am just more annoyed by it. Oh, and now we get to the moment where they're in, what do they call it? Is it the roost of the Griffin? The Griffin's roost?
Yeah, the Griffin's roost.
I was getting kind of Shrek vibes from this because it was literally, you've got Shaggy there as a bit of a reluctant hero with the armor, with their animal sidekick, kind of like Shrek and Donkey. They're going into this castle type situation to defeat a flying monster to protect a potential love interest. So it's very fairy tale all of a sudden, which I don't think is bad, but it is such a clear parallel to what you'd see in a fairy tale that it doesn't really seem fitting with the magical theme. Like, I guess if it was in Goblin King, I guess goblins are quite often in fairy tales, it would make a bit more sense. But to me, it was kind of like, was it a coincidence? Is it just how it's happened? But then you get Shaggy referencing, and this is where I'm going to upset people. He says, "You shall not pass." And I know that as either a Hobbit reference or a Lord of the Rings reference, and I admittedly don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
But the Griffin again comes for Madeline once they're kind of reunited. I don't know. I think it's wrapped up relatively nicely. You got, Shaggy saying, by the powers of Houdini, the Wizard of Oz, and the English kid with glasses, like, I command you to stop. And the Griffin then crashes, which was just funny. But I don't know, it just seemed like it was a very easy way to defeat such like a powerful villain. It was a bit too much of like, we're gonna get this item now, which is just the end of everything. But yeah. We then get the reveal that it is Merlin's brother. And what did you think about that reveal?
The reveal of him specifically, I think was good for character development. Like, I'm glad it wasn't Crystal. But again, I think there was enough story there that was like, oh, okay, you know, I can see and I can kind of sympathize for him and whatnot. And like, you know, it does get resolved by the end of the movie, like things get worked out between them. My biggest thing is I just can't totally believe how he did it.
Yeah, I do definitely agree, because I think everything in this world, in this explanation has been explained and it makes sense within the world that we're in. I think they do quite a good job covering all grounds and not leaving any ends untied. But one thing that Millie was definitely like very confused about when we first watched it was that it's revealed that this sibling is doing it for the money, and yet they, because they can't.
State-of-the-art technology.
Yeah, like they're just doing it because they can't afford to get their own production line, and yet they've got like this groundbreaking tech.
Yeah.
Which is
also,
odd.
I have to say, it bugs me because he's like, I never wanted to hurt anyone. Okay, then what were you doing, Madeline?
Oh gosh, I didn't think of that. What was the plan with that?
Yeah, well, he said, oh, it was all a ruse. I was, trying to get you off the trail and whatever. You guys, but then you came to the roost, and so I had to keep going. I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, and if they are the Griffin that wants to put people off the scent, maybe don't go to the Griffin's roost.
Yeah, exactly.
Go anywhere else but the Griffin's roost. But we get a relatively positive ending, to be honest. The business guy was really just being romantic, and you kind of got to get behind that to an extent, because for all, I think we're very much in a bit of a cynical era, probably for good reasons in some cases, where instantly we think business guy equals evil. But in this case, it's kind of nice to see a different side of that, where for all they've definitely Great Gatsby themselves, they started how they were, thought that they weren't good enough, and then worked their way up. You kind of get that aspect. And then you've got also Merlin and Marlin teaming up to hire Madeline. And it's a very positive ending. I don't think we really get anyone being arrested as such. Everyone's just friends. And I don't feel like it needed to be anything other than that. Like, obviously, we're going to get to that thing where just because someone forgives someone for something doesn't mean that they haven't done genuine crimes. Like, obviously, maybe you can argue that Merlin or Marlin are just hiring Madeline so there's not like a kidnapping lawsuit or anything like that. There's genuine things that you could bring up, but I like the ending where everyone seems to be on good terms. But what does everyone think about that? I guess we can start with smASH and then we can ask Millie.
Yeah, I definitely do like it, and I think it makes sense where they were brothers, because if they weren't brothers and he did all this, but he didn't go to jail, I guess it'd be a little harder for me to believe, because it's like, if you're family, I guess you're a little less likely to be like, oh, send him to jail for all he did, even though I sympathize for him. Whereas, since they're brothers, they can work it out, and talk about it and stuff. So I do like that, and I do like the ice cream dude. I'm blanking on his name again. Wasn't
Calvin
actually.
something.
Yeah, Mr. Curdles. He wasn't actually, like trying to be deceivious and whatever. My biggest thing is like, why was he so like? I guess I just didn't love the ending of him and the groundskeeper dude. Like, why were you all being so secretive?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely grounds for, like, I don't know if you could call it spying or espionage or something. But that was definitely weird, and even to the point where at the end they still try to lie, like, oh, who could have guessed that it was this person? And Velma has to go, you could have guessed because you knew.
Yeah.
But Millie, what do you think about this being one where there's not really an arrest, it's kind of just the two brothers forgiving each other and kind of moving on with things?
I feel like it's very I kind of don't like it, especially when, as we saw with like the Where's My Mummy, when there's an actual threat and people are at risk. I do feel like there's times when there was a serious risk here, like when the gang are like running up those stairs that are literally just a tiny thin pole.
Yeah.
They're running over that bridge that looks really rickety, like it could just fall through. It's like, okay, great. Well, I understand that you just did this because, you know, you missed, like, you know, you had your reasons for doing this, but at the same time, let's not forget someone could have died here. Like, this is serious stuff.
Yeah, I get that, and I guess it's that thing where I'm not really familiar with how the law kind of works over there. Like, obviously, they're not going to like bring out statutes at the end of the movie and go, "You're under arrest for like, you know, gross use of Griffin outfits, section 1955, subsection 2 of the Scooby Doo Act."
Yeah, but as law students, there's this, or at least, oh gosh, we can no longer say that, we're finished.
As
That's
law
weird.
graduates.
Yeah, as law graduates, there's a YouTube channel we like.
The Legal Eagle.
Yeah, the Legal Eagle, and they literally used to just go through movies and be like, okay, for all this was an entertaining movie, this is where it went wrong with the law. And I just feel like, you know, potential, you know, murder, death, harm, it's not like an excusable thing.
And there's a thing like, if you say smash someone's iPhone or something and they choose not to press charges, that's fine. But if you like break someone's property to the point where it could hurt someone else, that's when you can just get done for recklessness no matter what the property owner thinks. Like, if you explode someone's shed and a shard of glass hits like a civilian, it doesn't matter if the shed owner completely forgives you for it. Like, that's, you know, potentially very dicey for you. So I guess from that point of view, even though it's digging a bit too deep into things, I do agree. I guess I'm a bit weak for the kind of happy endings. Oh my gosh. But now we get this kind of ending scene, and this actually made me, I didn't know how to think about this. So we've got a situation where the gang are watching the magic show and Fred's like enjoying himself, and then Crystal comes to sit next to him and he's like, well, shouldn't you be on the stage? And Crystal goes, no, I've been like training someone else. And then Daphne shows up in the kind of quote unquote skimpy outfit, in the kind of boots, and Fred's mouth just like flies open. So it's like, does Fred just have a thing for the outfit? Like,
True.
it is like, I don't know, like obviously from like a point of view of, you know, quote unquote adult, if I can call myself that, that has so many kind of hilarious implications to it that it's just fun to kind of go there. And I don't know, it's just weird how like literally all it takes is just a change of outfit and Fred just forgets who Crystal is and he's fully like focused on Daphne on the stage. It's kind of funny. But then we get the Scooby puppet, and then that's it. That's kind of it for the movie. There's no real visual ending credits, but there's a lovely stylized credits that it shows who plays who and the voices of everyone.
And you really liked that additional bit at the end.
Yeah, it's
You wanted to write it down, and I don't think you did.
It's almost like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off type thing, or whatever the night thing is, with the dressing gown. It's the mystery machine. Like, oh, are you guys still watching? The mystery's over. Get over it. And I did like that. So I guess, Smash, did you have any more opinions on the kind of ending scene? I guess from Fred's true nature being revealed to that post-credit scene?
Not really. I liked how it, you know, was kind of a happy ending, and I do enjoy that we kind of got to see the results of all of this. You know, it wasn't like, okay, yeah, we'll work it out, and then the gang leaves and we never get to hear what actually happened type thing. I will say that although the song during the end credits is fun, I do enjoy it. It just doesn't seem to fit the movie. I don't know if you guys paid attention to the lyrics, but it's like talking about like being scared to go to bed because I'm scared about tomorrow and whatever. And it's just kind of a weird song, but yeah.
It's a bit deep. It is a bit deep. I'll say that. Because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I find myself scared to go to bed.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, that's neither here nor there, you know. Like we can discuss that at a later time, I'm sure. But no, I agree. It's all very fun. And again, the happy endings, like, there doesn't really need to be any implications of people actually getting in trouble for things, even though they might need to, you know. If they don't want to do that, yeah, fine, fair enough. We've kind of just got a movie out of it, and I think that's the best takeaway from that. Now, Millie, do you have anything you want to say about that kind of ending sequence at all?
No, I think that's everything that I kind of have to say.
So, I guess we're at the verdict stage now.
Indeed we are. So as always, JayBee, would you say smash or pass to Abracadabra-Doo?
Oh, okay. So Abracadabra-Doo, I think it, apart from, you know, the negatives, I think it's probably got the blandest villain we've ever seen in these movies, in my opinion, so far. I didn't connect with them whatsoever. And again, Madeline was a bit too cringy for me. But at the end of the day, I love the art style. It's amazing to kind of see the first instance in the movies when Matthew Lillard is Shaggy. And there's just a lot of fun. That's the thing. I always come back to these things. Like, if I'm not having fun watching it, it's instantly failed. But I did have fun with this. It's not one that I think I'm going to revisit a whole bunch of times. But no, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have a blast all throughout this movie, with the exception of maybe when the siren was on screen. So I'm definitely going to smash Abracadabra-Doo. Millie, will you smash or pass Abracadabra-Doo?
I think I'm going to put into practice what you just said there, which is if I'm not having fun, it has to be a fail. And JayBee only watched this once. I tried to watch it twice. And on both occasions, I was kind of switching off. I was getting quite sleepy. And which is also part of the reason why I've been so quiet through this. Not like we've both been feeling a bit ill, but also like I just didn't have anything to say. I was so I was just struggling to engage with it and follow the plot and stuff. I don't know. I found it really, really difficult. And I don't quite know why. Like, there's some things that I can say were good, but like JayBee said, kind of not seeing the villain as too much of a threat.
It did seem to me like a TV show villain, almost like the Manticore from Mystery Incorporated. It was kind of cool, but not something that I'd put on the front cover of a movie. That was kind of my rationale with the villain.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe because I also because I enjoyed the Goblin King so much, and the title, I was just like, oh my goodness, there's going to be amazing music. There's going to be, it's just going to be incredible. And then quite early on, I realised that I actually didn't think it was going to be. Like, I'm just looking at my notes again now. And there's a moment, you know when Shaggy's at the Moondale thing?
Oh, yeah.
And they see the villain for the first time and they start running.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've put that, there's no chase music. They start running from the villain. And I was just ready for some chase music to kick in. And again, I think that could have been like just a standard been set for me by Goblin King. Because as I said, I just loved the music in that. So maybe that was another thing. But like I said, I couldn't. I actually, again, part of the reason I've been so quiet, I just couldn't watch it. Like, I don't personally feel like I've watched it all the way through. And I've tried to watch it twice. So I'm sorry, that was a very long-winded of saying that it's a pass.
So that's like the first time that the two of us have disagreed since, I think, Aloha, if I'm...
Yeah, you've still not forgiven me for that. You still mention that.
No, it's just... He
was like,
no,
you do realise that I'm going to make you watch that again. Like, when we finish Smash or Pass, we're going to do some retrospectively. You're going to go back, you're going to watch that, and you're going to say it's a smash. I was like, no.
I'll watch it. I'll happily watch it by myself. But
so that just leaves Smash to kind of balance out the verdicts a little bit here. So would you say smash or pass to Abracadabra-Doo?
Well, I already kind of gave you my childhood history with this movie earlier, so that's kind of already covered, I feel. So, yeah, I can see all the good, I can see all the bad with this movie. You know, no movie's perfect. And like I appreciate what this one was trying to do, is trying to go back to that kind of darker atmosphere that we had in the very beginning, and it was trying to go back to more classic designs and outfits and stuff, and it was in this transition period for Scooby and voice actors and this and that. But I'm not gonna lie, rewatching it, I rewatched it today right before we recorded, and halfway through I just like got bored scrolling on my phone. Like, I have never, with this movie, even when I was young, I've just like fallen in love with this one. I've again, I can't deny that it's fun and good. I just get very at some point I just am like bored and like disconnected from it. And so I'm gonna have to pass this one.
Ooh, that's actually very interesting. I actually really like that, and this is actually boding very well going forward, and especially the ones that Millie and I have never seen before.
Yeah, I think I get really scared about the ones that we've not seen before, because like I don't know if they're like a huge community thing that I've missed. And so I'm always like, if I really am struggling with one, I'm just like, oh no. Like, I feel awful if I'm going into this and it's like a fan favourite and I'm just there like, I couldn't watch it. I just couldn't. And like I said, I was sat here on 2 occasions like, okay, I will rewatch this. I need to make sure I've watched this all the way through. And even the second time, I was just like, could tidy this while I'm doing that.
I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
Do this, and I didn't get to the end of the movie even the second time watching it through, and I don't know what it was, but literally, like, JayBee was sat here at the start of this with 20 sides of like A5 paper, and I had 1. I literally was like, I'm gonna have nothing to say. I don't remember it. It was, I don't know. It's the least I felt like I could engage.
But this is weird because this brings us way back to like our YouTube roots of doing like Friday Film Fight. Now, no one's gonna know what Friday Film Fight was. I think our most successful episode got like 2 views, and I think they were both me. But literally, I almost feel like I was wrong with that. Like, say it was kind of me posing one idea, Millie posing another idea, and then the kind of like expert saying, "Okay, this is like the winning argument."
we needed you to like. I needed you to like at least carry our side of this, because, like I said, it was one where I personally wasn't gonna have anything. Like, if I enjoy an episode, I will be like contributing all the way through. I'll be trying to direct every part of the conversation. Whereas if I don't engage with a movie, I just find it so difficult. Like, if I think I'm gonna like, if I struggle with a movie, I normally turn around to JayBee at the start like, can you do the intro for this one? Do you want to like kind of push the conversation more with this one than like I normally do, because I don't know what to do.
Yeah, like, I guess that's
and
what I'll
it's
say.
so good that you enjoyed this one so much, because it is the one that I did struggle with the most, and so I don't know what would have happened with this.
I guess here's what I'll say, if nothing else. This episode has been the longest episode for a majority pass, and you got to imagine the vast majority of the running time in terms of that middle bulk was just Smash and I going off on a tangent about things not even related to the movie. So I guess I guess that's telling to the movie overall, but I don't know. I think I'm still gonna stand by my smash of it, because I did have a good time, but it's just really interesting, and it does get me excited for future episodes of the podcast where like I'm just imagining so many different combinations of opinions that I'm just getting hyped.
Admittedly, I'm looking forward to the next few, so just looking at the next few.
So the next one that I have on the list here is Camp Scare.
Which we have somebody quite often in the premiere that's like, yeah, let's do this one. We can't wait for this one. So, and as well, it's one that I've just read so many good things about. I personally haven't seen it, but I'm really excited to like. literally, you know, as the premieres on Saturday, I feel like I'll be watching this on Sunday.
Maybe.
And ready for next week.
I mean, it definitely.
I kind of want to watch it more than once. I'm really looking forward to it.
It is like a summer movie, so we couldn't be covering it at a more topical time, to be honest. Being like at the heat of everything.
And we're coming up to Music of the Vampire as well, right?
Yeah, I think there's one more after Camp Scare. Then it's Music of the Vampire. I think, but I've forgotten what the kind of middle ground is.
And JayBee and I were talking today and realised that that's one where I did come back to Scooby just for that one movie. And I have seen it a couple of times, so I am looking forward to that one again. Because he was like, you wouldn't have been watching Scooby at that stage. And I was like, no, I remember the plot. Like, this happened, this happens. And we're like, oh, okay. I was like, I think I just tried to bully my nephew into watching Scooby Doo. Like, I kind of wanted an excuse to come back to it. And my nephew is like 6 years younger than me. So I guess I was a little bit like, okay, it's your turn. Watch this, watch this. And I just could never get him to watch it. It didn't catch on at all.
I mean, it did surprise me that you'd come back to the series when I didn't, because I always associated myself as the more nostalgic person and the person that's more into animation. But that's really interesting. I'm really excited to get to that.
Me too. It's going to be great.
But I guess in terms of wrapping things up, I don't suppose there has been any community news that you've heard of, smASH?
Not necessarily. I think there was some sort of like product is dropping. I don't even know what it is, to be completely honest. It's like some sort of I think a lunchbox set or something. I don't know. But nothing crazy.
No, I don't think we know anything either, other than that JayBee spent some money on a big Scooby Doo teddy. And
oh my gosh, I did, didn't I? And then, you know, because you're evil, right?
Yeah.
This was a massive Scooby Doo teddy. It's like I stood next to it, it goes up to like my belly button, and I had to go and find some Pokemon cards, okay? And Milly on purpose didn't ask the lady at the checkout for a bag, so I literally had to go all the way in this busy parking lot with like carrying this like.
Bearing in mind we'd just finished work, so he was in a suit and tie, carrying a huge Scooby Doo teddy, and then he had to carry it in the house past his little brother, who found it hilarious.
I didn't like.
And then you ordered a mystery machine too, so you Scooby shoppings.
No. I guess if I was to bring up some personal news, and obviously if anyone's got any exciting projects on the horizons, I know that smASH has been doing some awesome things, live streaming reactions of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which is a series that I have watched the odd episode of, but I really do want to maybe watch a few more episodes, personally. But I guess one thing that I guess we've got coming up, I don't know if it's going to be before the premiere of the Camp Scare episode or maybe even the next one, but I've tried my best to get a hold of some of the Funko Pop cans of the werewolf, and I'm hopefully trying to organise a live stream of that, similar to the kind of hobby box where maybe there'll be some giveaways in it or something. I don't know, I'm still trying to work on that, but I think that'll be a lot of fun, so I guess watch this space. But with that being said, smASH, where can we find you on the tinterwebs?
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter and Instagram, just at Ashton Hardy _. And obviously on YouTube, smASH, if you just search Ashton Hardy, should be one of the first ones that pop up.
Okay, great. So make sure to go and check that out. As JayBee said, some really amazing things happening, especially on the build up for the next Scooby movie. So thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week with Camp Scare.
Hey.